Welcome to 284 Media's Just for the Record. I am Jacka Wooding, and today I am joined by Chairman of the Virgin Islands Party, Premier, and Representative for the 7th District, Dr. the Honorable Natalio Wheatley. We discuss with him right after this quick commercial break.
There are many ways to enjoy life, like so many ways to count on Popular.
Rashford made it. Manchester United have come from behind to lead.
At home or on the go, watch CCT Live. Download our app and carry your favorite TV shows, news, or live sports anywhere you go. Visit cctbvi.com/live, select your package, and tune in.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. And of course, Dr. Wheatley, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Jacka.
All right, so how will we get straight into things? You could set the stage by walking me through your professional training and your academic career.
Well, of course, I started out in education. Actually, I graduated from the BVI High School in 1996. Previous to that, I went to primary school at Altus Gatliff Primary School. I actually finished my elementary education in St. Thomas at Emmanuel Benjamin Oliver Elementary School. And then I went on to the BVI High School, where I finished in 1996. And of course, I was a good student, even though I didn't study enough. And of course, I was voted the head boy at the BVI High School, and of course, showed signs of leadership. In 1996, I became a school teacher at the Enos Adams Primary School under the tutelage and mentorship of Principal Sylvia Adams, who was, legendary in education. I appreciated that year that I spent with her. And from there, I went to do my bachelor's degree at Clark Atlanta University. That was in 1997, and I graduated with my bachelor's degree in 2001. Graduated magna cum laude. And then I got a full ride to do my master's degree at Purdue University, where I got my master's in literary studies in 2003. And immediately following that, I went to the School of Oriental and African Studies in London to do my PhD. That's mainly academically. Professionally, most of my professional career was teaching at the H. Laverty Stowe Community College. I did that between, I think, somewhere around 2007, straight up to 2019, when I was successful as a Virgin Islands Party candidate. And of course, persons would know, I became the Minister of Education, Culture, Agriculture, Fisheries, Youth Affairs, and Sports, and also the Deputy Premier. And about 10 months ago, I became the Premier and Minister of Finance.
Why take that leap into politics?
Well, I love helping people. Ever since I was a little boy, I used to watch commercials with, young African children starving. They used to have these commercials telling you to contribute a certain amount of money per day to help African children, and it always impacted me. And when I went away to school, I was not just involved academically. I was involved in the communities wherever I was. I joined organizations, I led marches, I did all types of things while I was away at school. As a student, I became an activist. And of course, coming home, I wanted to come home and help my community. First of all, I didn't start off with politics. I started off really as a local community activist, but realizing that there were certain challenges that really had to be solved legislatively and through the executive, I made a leap into politics, and I'm blessed to have the opportunity to serve.
All right. Often we have other people judge our performance, but I just want to allow you the opportunity to judge your own performance as a public representative. So how would you how would you rate your time in the House of Assembly out of 10?
I think we've done well. I'm not sure whether I could actually put a number to it, but when you consider the 4 years that we've had as a government, it's very tough. We had the worst pandemic in 100 years. We came in on the heels of the worst disasters that the Virgin Islands ever faced. Over $3 billion of damage in infrastructure due to those devastating hurricanes. We had a COI. We had, of course, the situation that happened with the former premier. And all of those things created a very difficult environment. But despite those things, we perhaps passed the most legislation in history, some very significant pieces of legislation. We've probably made the most cabinet decisions in history, some very significant cabinet decisions. We've most likely done the most projects in history. And when we read the list of accomplishments of things we have achieved, people will be really surprised because perhaps there are things which people have forgotten about. And of course, while we still have challenges, while throughout the 4 years we would have made mistakes here and there, I think we've gotten through a very tough 4-year period, and we're poised to take the country forward to greater heights.
So you did acknowledge that there were some areas where the government may have fallen short during this term. Could you highlight any of those?
Well, absolutely, of course. Persons have been speaking about some things they were not pleased with, how we dealt with consultants such as Claude Skelton Klein. And the positive thing about it, Chaka, is that many of the weak areas we have taken measures even before the 4 years has finished to be able to improve on. And this is the significance of the whole reform process that we're going through right now. We've looked at how we deal with consultants. We looked at how we issue grants. We look at how we deal with statutory bodies, and we're going through that process right now. So even though we've made mistakes, those mistakes ultimately will make us better because we've learned from them. And me personally, I've become a better and a stronger leader as a result of those areas.
Right, amazing. Now, actually got the chance to take a look at the VIP's manifesto from 2019.
Yes.
And one of the areas I would have seen highlighted was water and sewage. And of course, that's an issue affecting your district that remains now at the end of the term. Could you just walk me through why that is?
Well, of course, we have many infrastructural challenges. And a lot of those infrastructural challenges has to do with lack of investment and poor decision making in the past. But we still have been able to make some improvements as it pertains to water. For instance, we've improved water storage throughout the Virgin Islands. We repaired many reservoirs in Long Bush, in Carrot Bay, in Zion Hill, in Parrot Hill, and there are many more reservoirs that we have repaired. We have a real challenge with our distribution system because the Virgin Islands is very hilly. And so, of course, we need our engineers, and they have been doing that. But, of course, what we are going to be doing within the next 4 years, God willing, with the support of the people, is to improve our distribution system. So what we're going to be doing is a phased development. And one thing we're informing the people is that we're going to present to the people an infrastructural development plan with phased development. For instance, in the 7th District, we just tendered for a complete overhaul of the roads between Paraquita Bay and Long Swamp. And what we're going to be doing when we overhaul the roads is we're going to make sure that all the utilities that are from Paraquita Bay to Long Swamp, that we take out the old brittle lines which are breaking all the time, which causes interruptions to water to people's homes. And this is what we essentially have to do throughout the entire Virgin Islands. And of course, the distribution system, sometimes you have hilly areas. In some areas, you need pumps to pump the water up the hills. In some instances, you need water by gravity lines going down hills. You need pressure management systems. And this is something that a comprehensive infrastructural development program will take into account.
All right. Now, that's certainly one of the things you said you want to look into over the next 4 years, hopefully. Yes. What are some other areas you intend to kick off running when or if you re-elected?
Yeah, one thing I neglected to say about the water and sewage issues we have. One significant thing we did over the past 4 years is we passed a piece of legislation that will change the Water and Sewage Department into the Water and Sewage Authority, which would be a statutory board. And this would allow the Water and Sewage Authority to be more nimble, more agile, more responsive, and less bureaucratic, and function more like a business. And that will help as well. And when we think about the next 4 years, we have extremely big plans. As you know, the Virgin Islands would have gotten direct flights from Miami, scheduled commercial flights for the very first time in our history. Over the next 4 years, we want to have developments. Of course, we have the Prospect Reef development, but very soon we're going to be putting out a request for proposal to have developments there. We are looking forward to having some developments on Beef Island. Also, we have the Eastern Fatags Bay Harbour project, which we've already had some initial discussions with landowners. We're reviewing some of the plans for those areas, and I've spoken to developers to be able to get those areas going. So in the area of tourism, we're going to see more visitors, we're going to see more developments, which means more job opportunities for the people. And over the next 4 years, we want to continue to build on the unemployment program that we started, which was the rated program. Of course, up until this now, we haven't had a consistent government-wide program to help persons with unemployment. One of the major challenges that we have in the BVI. So that rated program is just getting started, but we want to develop it to the point that every unemployed person has the opportunity to either get an apprenticeship in a private business and get good experience and on-the-job training, or they can get special training courses at our H. Laverty Stout Community College, as well as opportunities for their own personal development so we can know how to dress for success and how we can, operate on the job, how we speak to our supervisor and our co-workers, and other areas which leads to persons not being employed. And we have to make sure we enforce the labor code, which gives belongers a first opportunity for jobs once they're qualified. There are other areas that we want to focus on. Let's take a look at environment. We want to make sure we have solar panels on every roof, because the future for the BVI is really going green. We have the Anegada Solar Project, where we'll be providing 90% of the energy in Anegada from solar energy. But we want to extend that to all the 4 islands by giving homeowners the opportunity to have solar panels on their roof, and we'll have a clever way for them to be able to repay the loans that we get from the bank. We have the Agriculture and Fisheries Authority that we are about to launch very soon, just similar to the water and sewage. We passed that legislation during this 4 years, and we're in the process of setting up the authority. And that will help agriculture and fisheries to be much more responsive to the needs of the market. We'll provide more land for farmers. We'll provide landing areas for fishermen. And of course, we're going to use a place like Anegada that will become the breadbasket of the BVI by having a massive fishing complex on Anegada that will allow for us to do deep sea fishing off of Anegada. And we want to do some poultry houses and greenhouses on Anegada, where we've already allocated 40 acres of land for agriculture development. And there's so many more things I can speak about, Shaka, but I'm really excited. We have to focus on building our economy, diversifying our economy. We're going to have a music festival coming up very soon. That's a part of diversifying our tourism product. We're going to have with Prospect Reef Convention Center that will help us to diversify our financial services sector and offer more services to our clients. We have to deal with our social needs. We have to improve on our national health insurance, which right now is really a disaster, and it's bankrupt in the country. We have to fix our health services, which is not adequate. Most persons are going to private health care providers because of the inadequacies in our public healthcare system. Those things we have to fix. And of course, we have to make sure we address home ownership for young persons, ensuring that they can afford a home. Those are some areas, but there's so many more.
All right, thank you so much for your response. Right now, how would you describe your relationship with the governor? Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
Yo, everything good, Dad?
Aye. This thing got me one way, Daddy.
What you mean?
Ever since I hook up with this thing, can't eat, I can't sleep. This is the first thing I touch it when I reach home.
What you really? Hey, this ain't like you, you know.
Dad, this thing got me staying home. Keeping out of trouble me.
Wow. What your name is?
Shit. I talking about my CCT life.
Don't worry about missing your favorite series, sports, news, and local programming. Come to CCT today and sign up for CCT Live to access over 80 channels. CCT Live. Bring it home.
1 month free trial turn into 5. 5 months turn into, well, you know I huff. I watching ball. I been watching football. Dad, Nickelodeon, Paw Patrol. I am hooked. Hook, I tell you.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now, Premier, you continue to advocate for the importance of the BVI's relationship with the UK.
Yes.
But still, persons observe a continued back and forth,
Yes.
often between you and the governor. Some would say that speaks poorly for what you're advocating for. So just right now, how would you describe your relationship with the governor?
My relationship with the governor is very good. My relationship with the United Kingdom is very good. When I came to the office, perhaps that was the lowest that the relationship had gotten to. And we've made a completely 180 as it pertains to the relationship with the United Kingdom. Of course, we've given them confidence that we can undergo a reform process. And that's primarily the reason why our constitution was not suspended. The then Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom government, Liz Truss, had intended to suspend our constitution. But it's through the leadership that myself and the unity government showed our commitment to the reform process is why the constitution was not suspended. And we had Zach Goldsmith from the House of Lords and OT Minister from the UK government who came here and he praised us. He praised us for the progress we made. We've been praised by CARICOM. We've been praised by OECS for the type of progress we've made on our reforms. Of course, there'll be areas of disagreement. The governor and I sometimes, as mature individuals, we have difficult conversations. And sometimes it's important for me to stand up to the governor of the United Kingdom if I believe that they're doing something which is not correct. Because we have to make sure that we're respectful. We have to make sure we're diplomatic. But we also must make sure that the rights of the people of the Virgin Islands are respected. And I'm committed to defending the rights of the people.
Right, but in interest of diplomacy, would it have not been somewhat more productive to have some of these conversations behind closed doors rather than having them unfold in the public space?
Yeah, I would have preferred that. In some instances, comments were made publicly. And since they were made publicly, I had to respond publicly. But of course, I had a discussion with the governor. I believe we're past some of those issues. Hopefully those issues don't return. It is my hope and wish that we get along well because this relationship with the United Kingdom is key to the future of the people of the BVI. We want them to assist us in our goal of self-determination. And of course, I went to the United Kingdom some months ago. I engaged with the all-party parliamentary group led by MP James Sunderland. We had a wonderful conversation. We had a conversation with dozens of MPs and all of them want to see the BVI succeed. We went to Hertfordshire County and we made connections with Hertfordshire County. And there's so many things that we have planned. We want to have like a friendship day between Hertfordshire County and the BVI when we bring some people from the BVI to Hertfordshire County and bring some people from Hertfordshire County down to the BVI. We want to get technical assistance from the United Kingdom where necessary. In some instances, grants and things like that. We see the United Kingdom as a very good potential partner, but we just want to get to the point where there's enough trust in our relationship due to commitment to our reforms and due to their respect for our democratic rights, I believe we can get there under my leadership.
All right, thank you for your response. Now, Premier, of course, the circumstances of which you became Premier of the Virgin Islands were not really something that would have been seen before in the territory.
Right.
And that led to a lot of questions in persons throughout the territory and throughout the Caribbean of whether or not it was the correct decision that you lead the territory at this time. So what do you say to those people who say that you may not be fit to lead the Virgin Islands?
Well, just look at what we made it through. I mean, we had some very choppy waters. And of course, I brought the vessel safely into port. And we're ready now to go on another journey together. I think over the past 10 months, I've demonstrated my leadership by leading the reforms that we're going through right now, demonstrated my leadership by continuing the recovery from the hurricanes. Of course, we had the Elmo Stout High School that was built. That's the first building built on that campus since Lavity Stout was alive. You know, and we've been able to deliver project after project seamlessly under my leadership. Persons speak about the circumstances upon which I became Premier. But that's why I was selected as the Deputy Premier. Because when you select a Deputy Premier, you have to select a Deputy Premier who could potentially be the Premier at any time. And I was selected as Deputy Premier because of the skills that I have, the qualities that I have to bear. Some persons have used the opportunity and called me an accidental Premier. But I believe very firmly in God, and I don't think that God makes any mistakes. I had a friend of mine, a cousin of mine, who's a preacher in the church, and he said about 12 years ago that he saw a vision that I became the Premier. And at that time, I couldn't see how it could happen, you know? And I think no one's really saw it happening over the 4-year period. But I thank God that I had the opportunity to step up to the plate for the people of the Virgin Islands when they needed me most.
All right, and in stepping to that plate, there were a lot of critical decisions that had to be made. Yes. Now looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Absolutely. If you go through 4 years and you can't look at anything that you could have done differently, you're not introspective enough. I'm constantly seeking ways to learn and to improve. I'm my own worst critic. Of course, I wish we would have been able to communicate better with the people of the Virgin Islands. When the whole COI report was released and we were threatened with the suspension of the Constitution, to explain to persons exactly what was taking place. I put my full focus in negotiations with the United Kingdom and trying to prevent the suspension of the Constitution. But of course, in these instances, you have to make sure you dialogue well with the people. You know, in the next 4 years, God willing, I'm given the opportunity. I want us to improve our public relations. Maybe we need to come on to it for a media more. We have to improve our public relations so that we bring people along when we're doing things. And of course, as always, we always have to make sure that you're in touch and engaged with the people so they understand that you're fighting for them every day.
Of course, in preparing for this interview, one of the things we had to do is speak to members of the public, just find out what kind of questions they would have wanted answered. And that included hearing some of their concerns about the people who are seeking, you know, a re-entry into the House of Assembly or first-time entry into the House of Assembly. And with you, one of the concerns expressed was tardiness. Now, I recall at the opening of the ESHS campus, that was mentioned during the ceremony as well. I would just like you to take a moment to address those concerns.
Well, I apologize for those things. I think persons would understand that as Premier and even before when I was Deputy Premier, I've taken on a lot. I have a lot of portfolios. I have a lot of engagements. I try to come to every single engagement that I'm invited to. And admittedly, sometimes I take on too much. And sometimes, you know, the resources which are there to support me are not enough, which even results in me doing too many things on my own as opposed to some of the support that I need to have to help me to be the best Premier that I can be. But that's certainly something that's been an area that I've identified for improvement, and certainly is something that I will make sure that we improve on over the next 4 years.
Right, and another area would have been your relationship with the press. We would have seen some concerning situations unfold in recent months especially. So moving forward, how do you intend to better your relationship with the press?
Well, I would say I have an excellent relationship with the press. There's one member, a purported member of the press, I'm not quite sure about that, who I've had some challenges with, just because, of course, I believe that individual has not behaved like a responsible member of the press. It's my view, persons who are journalists, they have a code of ethics that they abide by. And so I've never had a problem with anybody in the press. I try my best to make myself available for interviews, for comments. I try my best to have regular press conferences where the press is not hindered in any particular way. I had one incident with one member of the press who I believe have not practiced the proper principles of journalism. But moving forward, I don't think we'll see any challenges with me and the press.
All right, thank you very much for that. Now, life can be very uncertain. Of course, in contesting an election, everybody has their eyes on winning, but sometimes things don't go as planned. So what are your professional plans if not re-elected?
Well, I don't even want to consider not being successful. I know that I'm trained and I can go anywhere in the world really and get a job. You know, that's not something that I have a challenge with. I have so many peers who I went to school with who've gone to the United States, to the United Kingdom to be able to find work. But I love the BVI and I want to see the BVI improve. And whether in or out of office, I'll always be committed to the BVI's success. For that, everyone can be assured.
All right. Now, you've publicly claimed that you had originally thought of the concept of repealing the Retiring Allowances Act of 2021, or as we call it right now, the Greedy Bill. Is it accurate to say that this was originally your idea? And more specifically, what areas of the bill do you want to see repealed?
Well, of course, I think we have to take a look at the whole thing. I'll explain to it because a lot of persons haven't read the bill. Persons who are saying repeal the bill haven't read it, so they don't know the difference between the first part or the second part. My view is that an independent body, not legislators. I think this is the first area that we went wrong. Legislators shouldn't be determining their own salaries or retirement packages. And of course, it was an attempt to fix a problem that we had, that legislators were getting paid on a base salary. Their pension was determined by a base salary of $36,000 a year, which I don't think you'll see in any country where persons have legislators. And I think it's important that everyone in the society has a salary and a pension that they can live on. That's important. So right now there's a salary review taking place, and the salary review will take into account legislators' salaries and pensions, along with all the other areas, teachers, persons in technical areas of government. Everybody that will look at what they should be paid, comparing to jurisdictions with similar sized economies, or what's happening in the region, and come up with something that's fair for everybody. That's what I'm committed to. Of course, I apologize to the people because, of course, sometimes in politics you believe, sometimes even though there's some things that you don't like, you go along with it because you're fixing another problem. But that was certainly a mistake, and a mistake that we will correct on day one.
All right. Now, this brings up another question. Are you in favor of raising minimum wage? Stay tuned for more Just for the Record after these messages.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. My name is Kamal Haynes. Most of you know me from 284 News, but now you get to see me in a different light on my very own show called Health is Wealth. We have Joel Turnbull.
I don't want you to arch your back when you're pulling down.
Milton McLean.
First of all, right, your footwork.
Stephen Payne.
That was a 9 out of 10. I know you got the service down pat.
Steve Augustine.
You did a pretty hard workout today, so perhaps...
And as you can see, it's actually...
you're feeling it.
Alonzo Boynes.
Taekwondo.
Adam Morrows.
I'll speak as if you're an absolute beginner.
I am an absolute beginner.
You are an absolute beginner.
And Seth Graham.
It bites. It will bite.
Get your water, get your fruits and veggies, and experience a wealth of knowledge about getting healthy.
Today, I am doing coral treatments with Beyond the Reef. Today, we are doing shark research. So today, we are doing whale research with Beyond the Reef. And wherever I go, I take CCT with me because my life is unlimited.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. All right. Now, are you in favor of raising minimum wage?
I think it's important that we review the minimum wage. I'm not an expert, of course, so I'll rely on the experts once they have a proper review of the minimum wage, whether it needs to be raised. One thing I know for sure, we have people in this country who are not making enough to survive. Okay, raising the minimum wage is something that you can't say that you're going to do right away because it may result in some level of inflation. It may make the cost of living higher. But I believe that persons must make a salary that they can live on and that they can take care of their families with. This is something I don't really promote much, but I used to be a part of a socialist party. You know, I took on socialism. I've since left the Socialist Party because, you know, I believe that a mixed economy is the best thing for us. Whether we use the free market system and combine some elements of government regulation, and you can get a good system that works. But I certainly believe in individuals at the very bottom of the scale being able to have a decent life. And that's better for everybody, because those persons won't be tempted by a life of crime. Those persons can ensure that their children go to school with breakfast in the morning and they can get their lunch and their dinner with no problem. You'll be able to put the money into educating your children and developing them. You'll be able to afford to transport yourself. You know, you'll be able to afford your own health care. These are things that we have to pay attention to in a society. So the methods that we do it through, we can discuss and debate, but the conclusion that we want to get to, the outcome that we want, is a society where everybody in the society can thrive.
Now, in your response, you mentioned two very important issues: cost of living in the BVI and crime. So let's start out with the cost of living. How do you intend to tackle that?
Well, as we know, the cost of living is affected by many external factors. Of course, we import probably over 90% of what we consume here. So one of the things that we can do here is produce more things locally. And one of the things that every family needs is food. You know, so that's why I spoke about making Annie gather the bread basket of the BVI. We can't grow everything here, but we can focus on some key areas like poultry. We can get our fruits and vegetables from here. In the Caribbean, there's a wonderful initiative to reduce imports into the region by 25% by the year 2025. The BVI has to get on that train and to become a producer, and therefore we can have a better control of the prices. I think we also have to have a conversation with our importers, have a conversation with customs and the ports, and we have a conversation about how we can reform the system of duties here to ensure that the persons who are bringing in items can sell the items for a better price, and to make sure that that price is passed on. For instance, in the Consumer Protection Act that the Virgin Islands Party government passed, there's provisions to be able to regulate prices on a basket of goods. We don't need price control across the whole board, because you don't want price control on things which are considered to be luxury items. You want the market to be able to determine the prices of those things. But those things that you need to survive, basic basket of goods, it could be Pampers, it could be fruit and vegetables, it could be, oats or cereal or anything like that. We have to make sure that we have price ceilings in place. We're not trying to stifle our business owners, but we want to make sure when we give concessions to those business owners, we have to ensure that they're passed on to the customers, and we can do that through regulating the prices of a basket of goods. And that's going to be something that we're going to focus on. And when we put solar panels on every roof, that's going to help us control the cost of energy, which it drives up the cost of living here in the Virgin Islands. We also have to explore affordable housing for persons, because food is one area, but housing is another. Some persons pay their whole paycheck just on their monthly rent. So we need to make affordable housing available, and we can do it. The Joes Hill project, that we completed the Joes Hill project, but the problem with the Joes Hill project is that building those homes was too expensive, and therefore the cost of a home is too expensive. And that certainly didn't take into consideration the group or the population or the target group that we needed to target to ensure that they had affordable homes. And that same Joes Hill project, we're going to have to think about ways of getting persons into those homes, because they're not qualified based on their credit rating with the bank. So whether we have to do rent to own schemes until persons can actually afford the mortgage, those are the things that we have to do to get persons into homes. So I dealt with energy, I dealt with food, and I dealt with housing. I think those are some of the key areas as it pertains to cost of living.
And what about crime? How do you view the current situation in the BVI as it relates to crime, and what is your plan to tackle that?
When I grew up in the BVI was a very safe place. And persons often spoke about the fact that you could leave your door open and unlocked at night. Well, the BVI has changed. And of course, every society goes through change. That's expected. But certainly we want the BVI to continue to be a safe place to work and a safe place to live. And we've seen some very concerning violent incidents over the course of the last few years. Even in my own district, I've had family members, persons in my community who have been gunned down senselessly. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to start in the schools. Because from the schools, a lot of these persons who are troubled, you notice it from the schools. But we don't have a proper system in place to make interventions in the school system when we notice that things are going wrong in the school system. So we have to start in the schools, promoting the proper values. Identify some of the individuals who are coming to school without breakfast. Identify some of the children in school who obviously are having a difficult time, and make sure that our social services are able to respond and provide programs of support for those children. For instance, we will start a school lunch program. That is a pledge that I'm making to the people of the Virgin Islands, where individuals who can afford it will pay for lunches, and those who can't afford it will be subsidized. Okay? And so that's part of the thing. The next thing that we have to do, of course, is ensure that the individuals, when they leave school, that they're able to get a skill, they're able to get a trade, they're able to get an education, so they can have an alternative to a life of crime. For the rated program, we had a session with some young people where we brought in this individual who owns Barry Electronics, Mr. Barry. And he told them the journey that led him to become an electrician, and how he started. He started from humble beginnings, and he was able to own his own business, and now he's getting jobs at Oil Nut Bay, he's getting jobs at Mosquito Island, he's getting a job all over the BVI. And to persuade these individuals that this is the way that you're able to meet your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations. Because when they listen to the music and when they watch the movies, they see that crime is the way for me to bling. Crime is the way for me to get a nice vehicle. Crime is the way for me to get a young woman to be interested in me. And we have to show them different ways. Prevention is always better than the cure. But in terms of tackling crime as well, we have to give the police the support that they need. And during the Fifth House of Assembly, we're going to have to have a conversation with the people of the Virgin Islands about what type of powers we want the police to have, okay, to be able to tackle crime. We also have to deal with radar and border security, make sure that any vessels coming in and out, that we know who's coming in and out, and we'll be able to intervene when someone is coming in here illegally, either gun smuggling, drug smuggling, or human trafficking. Those are big challenges that we have to address.
And you did mention drugs. There's been a discussion going on throughout the Caribbean and throughout British overseas territories regarding decriminalization or legalization of cannabis.
Yes.
Where is that at for you right now in the Virgin Islands?
Well, you would know that we passed in the House of Assembly an act which would legalize medicinal cannabis. Of course, for the first time in the Virgin Islands history. You know, I would have been the minister that led that. And of course, we had some challenges with getting that legislation assented to. But I've had a conversation in the United Kingdom a few months ago when I was there, and we've worked out the issues that we have to work out, where we can move forward with medicinal cannabis, because we understand that medicinal cannabis can help us with many of the ailments that our people right now are suffering from. It's been recognized as a medicine all over the world, and we're depriving the population from being able to have access to this medicine. And of course, it's going to present additional opportunities to diversify our economy by us being able to grow medicinal cannabis here. And we have a plan to grow medicinal cannabis right in Paraquita Bay. So this is certainly an area that we're going to be looking at over the next coming months. And certainly with the Virgin Islands Party government, persons can expect that we'll stop criminalizing people for the use of cannabis, but we'll also allow persons responsible ways to be able to access cannabis. You'll have to be licensed to be able to distribute and licensed to be able to consume, and it must be for medical purpose in line with the UN conventions.
Now, you did mention that it would be your intention to stop criminalizing people for the use and possession of cannabis, I'm assuming to a certain quantity.
Absolutely, because of course, once you have a certain quantity, it would be assumed that you are a supplier. And we want to discourage persons from being able to do that. So we won't be able to give anybody a slap on the wrist for being a supplier. We want persons to operate in the cannabis trade legally. I would never encourage anyone to break the law. So based on the UN conventions, we have to do medicinal cannabis only. But of course, as the United Nations evolves, their views evolve. Just a couple of years ago, they changed cannabis from being the most restricted schedule and to the least restrictive schedule, recognizing its medical value. But the UN conventions have not as yet sanctioned recreational cannabis use, despite the fact that obviously we have persons who think differently. But I believe it's wrong, Chaka, for persons to go to jail for something that's making persons healthy and wealthy. And of course, we should not interrupt persons' potential and their future and their livelihoods by criminalizing for that. Of course, let's try our best to discourage persons from breaking the law, but let's not, interrupt and impede their future.
Okay. And while you stop criminalizing people after such legislation comes into play, would it be a consideration to possibly look back at the records and persons in the last 2, 3, 5 years who would have been criminalized for such offenses, that their records get looked at again?
We'll have to do that. We certainly have to do that. I believe that would have been in the legislation as well, expunging persons' records. I think that's something that you see even in the United States. Under the leadership of Joe Biden was done. I think in every society where this legislation has been passed, that's what we've been looking at. And I really think that the conversation is changing, Chaka, as it pertains to cannabis. 5 years ago, you wouldn't have seen somebody like Joe Biden do something like that. 10 years ago, even worse. So we're moving in the right direction. I believe that we must expunge people's records. And even those persons who, I feel badly every time I think about some persons who've lost years out of their life and have been set back just because of a plant, and certainly we can't tolerate and allow such things to continue, and it will not continue under my leadership.
Thank you for your response. Now, recently we had a candidate, I believe an at-large candidate of another party, speak on platform and state that, according to information he has gathered, the United Kingdom is keeping a very close eye on the Virgin Islands in terms of who voters are going to let into the next House of Assembly. So can you speak on anything in that regard?
Well, just to say, I think the United Kingdom is rightly paying attention to the elections. I think everybody's eyes glued to the elections. It's a very interesting election, but they have stated that they'll work with whomever may come. But I think that the voting public should take that into account when they go to the polls, what type of relationship individuals will have with the United Kingdom. That is something to pay attention to. I think it's something that works to my advantage, really, because I've been there and I've done that. And under my leadership, we've been able to steady the ship and have a good relationship with the United Kingdom and find the balance, of course, in being able to stand up to the United Kingdom and to the governor where necessary in defense of the people's rights. So I believe that the Virgin Islands Party under my leadership is the right choice to take the relationship forward with the United Kingdom. But the United Kingdom will have to work with whomever comes. But we should just keep it in mind that we still have an order in council, which is hanging over our heads, and the Constitution can still be suspended. So we shouldn't think that just because we have an election that we can go back to the reckless behavior of the past. We have to remain committed to good governance, accountability, transparency, progress for the people, adherence to the rule of law, and we have to remain committed to the process of reform that we committed to under my leadership.
Now, you said this is an election to watch, and that is very correct. A lot of people in the community have made those kinds of comments. But persons watching have also said there's an uncanny similarity between your behavior on the platform and that of former Premier Andrew Foy, with some even going as far to say that they felt like you were copying his behavior in terms of seeking to garner more support. So what do you say to that?
Well, they've been a very, I would say, disingenuous attempt to link me to Andrew Foy in whatever way they can. This is what my opponents have been doing. As you would hear, you had one representative saying that he's still controlling the government. And I know for a fact that they actually have strategy meetings saying that we're not doing a good enough job linking the current premier to the former premier, or not linking this Virgin Islands Party government to that of the past. Okay, I am very comfortable in my own skin, and I certainly don't have to copy anybody else. God has given me abilities and gifts, and those are the gifts I bring to bear on the campaign trail and in my position as premier. And Andrew Foy would have his challenges. He's going to go before the courts, and the courts will decide whether he's innocent or guilty. I would say allow him to go through his process. Don't wish bad upon a soul. Pray for him and for his family. And of course, this whole situation has impacted everybody in the Virgin Islands so negatively. And let us move on with the Virgin Islands, because the Virgin Islands Party is bigger than Andrew Foy. The Virgin Islands Party is bigger than Ralph O'Neill. It's bigger than myself. It's bigger than Lavity Stout. The Virgin Islands Party is about all the people, and it will continue to be about all the people. And that is why the Virgin Islands Party is the oldest, most active, and most successful party in the history of the Virgin Islands, celebrating 52 years. It is a brand, it is a philosophy that will never die, because it's based on upliftment of the people.
All right, thank you so much for your responses today, Dr. Wheatley. Thank you for all of your time, and I really do hope that members of the public find this information valuable to their experience in the 2023 general elections on April 24th. Again, I am Jacques Wooding, and this has been Just for the Record.
One.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. My name is Kamal Haynes. Most of you know me from 284 News, but now you get to see me in a different light on my very own show called Health is Wealth. We have Joel Turnbull.
I don't want you to arch your back when you're pulling down.
Milton McLean.
First of all, right, your footwork.
Stephen Payne.
That was a 9 out of 10. I know you got the service down pat.
Steve Augustine.
You did a pretty hard workout today, so perhaps...
And as you can see, it's actually
you're feeling it.
Alonzo Boynes.
Taekwondo.
Adam Murrows.
I'll speak as if you're an absolute beginner.
I am an absolute beginner.
You are an absolute beginner.
And Seth Graham.
It bites. It will bite.
Get your water, get your fruits and veggies, and experience a wealth of knowledge about getting healthy.